Okay, let's get started. Thanks for coming to my stream. Today we're going to do an educational stream this time. We're going to learn about um, the assembly of a certain item. So let's get right into it. Let me make this. Let's get started. Thanks for coming to my stream. Today we're going to. Wait, why is this happening? Stream this time. We're going. Let's. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I'll start by going over the parts first, and then we'll go over the tools necessary to assemble this. So first is the main attraction, the lower receiver, as you can see right here. Very nice piece. Now, because we're on Susan's website, Susan Haight, I have to tell you that you should buy this from a licensed dealer after completing a background check and satisfying all legal requirements. But I'm sure you can get this however you'd like. Next is this parts kit. So usually it's better to buy a parts kit with everything included all at once. If you just buy all the parts piecemeal, it's going to cost you more and be a lot of trouble. So I'm going to go over all the parts inside this parts kit in a moment. So here is just the stock. Goes on your shoulder. This is just a piece. This can be swapped out really easily. It's not really part of the build because you can just pull it off and swap it out. This is the buffer tube. This is the back part. It screws onto the back right here, and it's used to absorb the recoil. And then here's the rest of the parts. Whole bunch of little tiny stuff in here. I wonder if I should zoom in a little. So we'll go over all these parts. So first here is the grip. This is simply a grip. You grip onto it. This is illegal in some states. These are parts for the grip. It's got some screws and roll pin, other pins. We will check that out later. This is the buffer tube detent. So this thing, well, buffer retainer. This holds this thing in from flopping out like it is now. This is the selector switch. This is to switch it on and off. Right here, it goes right there. This is the trigger assembly and hammer. So this is the thing that actually makes the fun stuff happen. Magazine release. That's what drops the mag, allows you to reload. Bolt catch. Bolt catch holds the bolt open when you're out of ammo. We will demonstrate that later. And the pins that hold the top on. So the top will go in and out based on these pins. So let's get right into the assembly. Well, I need to go over the tools required. So first, we'll go over the regular tools. You'll need hex wrenches. This is actually this is just to screw in the grip. So the grip will give you a different screw depending on what brand grip it is. And it might either be a hex wrench or a regular screw. So you'll either need this or a regular screwdriver. This is a plain old hammer. It's used to hammer stuff in. A set of roll pin punches. These will be used to punch in a whole bunch of roll pins that we'll be getting to. Basically, this whole thing's held together by roll pins and very few screws. A little bit of grease, keep everything lubricated. And those are the normal tools. We'll go into the special tools. We need two of them. This is a wrench to screw in the back. It's to screw this part in because it's got a special nut. And the pin installation tool. So this is a special tool to help install the detents to hold this front pin in. And it's got a little bit of other utility too, but I highly recommend getting this tool. You'll be able to find it on any website selling items related to this build. Okay, so those are the tools, and of course just a little bit of lubrication. Don't use the same stuff you use for reps. It will cause serious problems if you do. Okay, so first we'll start with the magazine release. This part's pretty easy. It's quite simple. There's only 3 components. The lever that holds the magazine in, the spring, and the actual button you press. Now this button is also illegal in certain states, so hopefully you live in a free state. So to start out the installation, we're just going to lubricate up this thing a little bit and then screw it in. So just put a little lube on the spring is recommended. So this part's quite easy. Just drop this in here. Drop the spring in, and we need to screw on this button. So screwing on the button is actually maybe a little bit tricky. So what you need to do is you need to press this button in all the way so that it reaches the threads of this lever, because this lever is going to spin and you'll screw it in like this, but it needs to be, the button needs to be all the way in to reach that far. Harder than I remember. There we go. So just shove that button in real hard, then screw this guy in. Having a little trouble here. All the guides make it look so easy. So now that this part is done, it's held in. It's like partially screwed in, but this button is protruding too far. So if you look in here, the screw threads should reach all the way to be flush with the button. So the screws shouldn't protrude, but it also shouldn't be sunken in like that. So we need to shove this button in real hard to get this to protrude out like so, and then screw it in the rest of the way. Still not quite there. Maybe one more turn. There we go. Maybe one more. Let's see if it's one more turn. No, not one more turn. It's going to be too hard. Okay. So now we've completed the magazine release. Oh, I don't have a mag here. I'm gonna get a mag. Be right back. But you can use this also, mag block. But here's an extended assault clip zine, illegal in several states. Please check the legality of this item before you purchase one. Yuki Ohado. This part's greasy. So we'll just function test this component. Should shove this guy in there. And then drop her out like that. So it seems to be working quite well. Move on to the next component. The next component is the bolt catch. So the bolt catch goes into this slot right here, and it's what holds the gun open when you run out of ammo. So in here, this component right here goes up and down. And when you're out of ammo, it will trigger the bolt catch right here, and that will hold the bolt open to allow you to reload without cocking the gun again. You don't have to when you reload. You just shove the mag in, hit the bolt catch, and then you're ready to go. I'll demonstrate the full functionality later. Bolt catch is quite tricky because it's the first part we'll need to hammer in, but I'm sure we can handle it. Just to demonstrate the theory of operation before we begin the assembly, this piece goes in right here, like so, and pivots around this pin that we'll install. It pivots like this, and when the magazine is out of ammo, it will lift this tab and hold this bolt catch up. Start by putting a little bit of grease on the spring. And drop it in. This is the spring that actually holds it down until it's pushed up. So stick that in there. Put this little pusher piece on top right there. And then we can shove this in right here. Now we'll need to begin the hammering process. Actually, I probably should have started the hammering first without that, but whatever. Okay. So we'll get out a roll pin punch. Choose the right size. Usually just kind of trial and error. See what works, see what fits. This one feels good. Let me just make sure this one isn't. This one is too big. So this is a 3/32, 3 out of 32 inch roll pin punch. Fits right in there. It's got a little dome on the tip, which holds it in the roll pin, which is kind of a hollow pin. And that helps you hammer it in without much difficulty. So just carefully balance this. Let me put this on something so I don't dent my table. Paper towel. Perfect. Balance this on top of here in that little hole. Balance this on top. So you got a little bit of a tower of terror here. It's quite tricky. Holding all these pieces together. Balance 3 pieces. The hole, the roll pin, and then the punch. And you got to carefully hammer this guy in. So once the pin starts taking, you don't really have to hold it in. You just have to. Ooh, didn't take. They also sell lower receivers that don't use a pin here. They just use a screw. If you do that, you can skip this whole tricky step. But the standard is to use this pin. I can show you the screw later. Oh no, I'm gonna use this side. So now it's kind of taken in, so now I can just hammer real hard. But don't hammer too far or else you'll hammer past this piece. So I just put the bolt catch in there and hammer away. Well, it's also got kind of a lot of moving parts too. Oh no. Pain. Don't let this discourage you from doing your own build, because it's not as bad as it looks. It really isn't. I should just like shove a reverse pin in the back to hold this guy in, or else he's kind of going to be wanting to walk out, so maybe I'll just stick this in just to hold him in. Just hold him in place. Kind of a hack job. Just get that barely in. Whatever. And we can just hammer. Hammer with all my might. Oh no. Okay, that was a stupid idea. Okay, we're just about aligned, so hold this in. Maybe I'll just hit the pin directly. There we go. Not quite. Get her lined up just right. This part is one of the most tricky parts of this assembly. Now it's actually in, so this part is working, so I just need to hammer the rest of the way. This hammering is probably not pleasant. I'm going to turn this off so you can just watch the hammering in peace. And there we go. So this piece is now installed. Well, it's certainly one of the trickiest parts of this assembly. Now you can see it goes like this. So I'll show you how it works now. Do a function test. Stick this in, and it should raise this tab, raising the bolt release. And if you push it, well, you can see this part is engaging here. Now let's move on to the next component. Next component will be the trigger guard. So that's just this piece here. Prevents stuff from hitting the trigger from the outside. Ooh, it did on my table. Whatever. It's a cheap IKEA table. So since this is a Magpul, not a mil spec, it's a little different than a normal one. So I actually don't know how this works. I guess I use this screw. I use the set screw and then screw it in like this. Is that right? Never done this before. Yeah, so I think I'm gonna. Normally this trigger guard has a spring-loaded piece that holds in the front, but since this is a Magpul brand, it's a little different than that. So I will just screw it in with this guy, and then see how that goes. Probably one of these small little guys. Maybe this guy. There we go. So this is a 1/16 hex wrench. And we'll just put it in this hole and screw her in. Oops, fell off. This is the front hole. The front hole is usually spring-loaded, but sometimes held in by a variety of methods, in this case by a screw. The back will be another roll pin, so another round of hammering. Getting hammered. Is this thing going in? Yeah, it's going in. Gonna need more power. It's probably good. This thing doesn't hold anything. It's just to hold it in, so it's not going to go under some severe stress or anything. Probably one more turn. There we go. Now the rear is going to be a roll pin like this. And just hammer her in. So usually a recommendation is don't just hammer it directly, because these thin tabs, if it's not supported underneath, when you hammer it, it will snap this tab off, potentially. I've never had it happen, but just put something underneath there so that that tab isn't completely unsupported. Same as that other roll pin installation, find the right thing that fits. So this one is a little too small this time. I'm going to use this larger size, a 1/8 inch roll pin punch. This roll pin is the same both ways, so you don't need to worry about putting it in backwards. It's the same both ways. Use a 1/8 roll pin punch, and we'll just hammer that in. Oops. As always, this balancing act is delicate and tricky. Use a bigger hammer. I don't think that's helping. Oh, let me turn that off. So now we've installed it. It should be flush on both ends. This pin is a little shorter than the width of the thing, so you can hammer it down a little bit past so that it doesn't stick out. You definitely don't want it to stick out. Does anyone know what rat means? I keep seeing this word, but IDRK. Sorry, sir. How many times have you done this before? Me? I've done this like 3 or 4 times. I haven't done it with Magpul furniture before. I've only done it with mil-spec furniture, so it's a little different. Once you do your first one, just can't stop. Just keep doing it. Do your reps. Your reps. Okay, let's move on to the next component. So let's get some guts in here. See this? It's totally empty. Let's add some boom boom bang bang parts. It's the second half of Ogi Rat. Yeah, so yeah, Rat is pretty hard to explain. Rat is from well, I guess originally it was when the VTuber Usada Pekora said Ogi Rat in one of her streams, and then it would just turn into a meme. And then on a certain website, certain anonymous website, people just started saying rat a lot. I think it's been retconned into supposedly meaning narrative. Narrative. But I don't know. But basically, it's just it's like a conspiracy theory almost, or an unfalsifiable claim that has no evidence. You kind of get the feel for what a rat is when you hear a lot of rats. Start with the trigger. Pull the trigger and get kills. That's what the point of the trigger is. So we will lube this guy up first. Well, we'll assemble it. So we need to put this thingy into here. So this thingy goes here. In here, there's a little hole for a spring. And that spring pivots this thingy in here, like so. So we're going to put the spring in first. Now this spring is fat on one side and thin on the other. And that fat side... Oh, it's a meme. I like conspiracy theories. Yeah, me too. They're pretty fun. The fat side is used to hold the spring in. So the spring clicks in with this fat side holding it in, and that holds the spring in. So don't be worried about this fat side of the spring. First time I saw this, I was pretty confused, but it's supposed to be like that. So just a little grease, a little bit of white jizz, and then stick it in this hole. So it'll take a little force, and then once you get past the resistance, it's going to click in and hold itself in. So that spring ain't coming out. It's held in. And then there's this component here. So next we'll install the trigger spring. The trigger spring, there's 2 springs. One is the hammer spring and the other is the trigger spring. So the trigger spring is this one, the one that's like this shape, and the hammer spring is like this shape. So the trigger spring is just so when you pull the trigger, it's got a nice springy feel. That's all it does. And it resets this trigger back to the front when it's done. So we're going to install the trigger spring. The trigger spring goes in like this orientation. Don't do it upside down. If you do it upside down, you'll probably have problems. So this piece goes underneath right there in front of the trigger. So we'll just stick that in. I'm having a little trouble here. This is the trigger spring, right? Wait, no, did I screw it up? I mixed it up, didn't I? This is a hammer spring. This one's a hammer spring. And this one's a trigger spring. Because the trigger spring's weak. It just needs to reset the trigger. The hammer spring needs to make everything go boom, boom, bang, bang. So as long as they're in theories and you have fun with them, it's fine. Yeah. Yeah, it's a little bad when it turns out that the so-called conspiracy theories are actually true. When rats become reality, then well, it's not fun. So it goes like this. Wait, no, what? Like this? What am I saying? I'm a little disoriented here. It goes like this, like this, right? No, like this, like this. There we go. There we go. Like this orientation, or this orientation. So this hook hooks in here, and then it loops around this pin. So now we'll actually shove this in, and actually install it. This time it's the correct one. Nice hands. Thanks. Oh no. So this is no good. It can't go down there. It's got to go in there, in the little crack. So I got to pull it out and do it again. There we go. Like so. So the installation of the trigger is pretty easy. Just drop it in, line her up like so with this rear hole, and then grab one of these pins. So these pins have two little notches in them, if you can see. But as far as I know, those notches, it doesn't matter which way it goes in. It can go in front and back. If rat does turn out to be true, then that's where the true fun starts. Can't lie about that, lol. It's not paranoia if they're really out to get you. Yeah, well, unfortunately, it's true. They really are out to get you. So these usually fit in pretty loosely, so you just shove it in. You don't need to hammer. Just push it in like that. So just line it up, push it in. Now, you can... Oh, shit, I forgot the other part. Oops. Okay. Well, anyways, you can pull the trigger, but I forgot the other part, so we're going to take that out. Bang, 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 bang. It's always fun when you get to the part where you can pull the trigger. So there's a few ways you can do this, but you need to get this piece into that slot, and then also shove the pin in. So what I like to do, which there's a few ways to do this, is I like to put in a pin on each side, like so. That just holds the trigger in place. And then you can line this up in there and push one of the pins in all the way. But there's a variety of ways you can do this, so just do whatever feels best for you. So now we have the trigger in, bang, 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 and we also have this tab in here too. So this tab can go, you can push it down a little in the back. Should rotate freely, and that spring, you can push against that spring, kind of rotate it a little. Next is the hammer. So usually, I think it's said to lubricate this piece right here, this clip and this clip. So these clips are basically some of the most important parts of it. This clip is the thing that your trigger pulls and releases off this clip and then makes a bang. So let's go. Put a little grease there, and then on this clip too. But this part's not really that important. Well, I think all the grease is optional. If you really want, you can make your gun totally dry, and it'll still work. But if you want smooth and long-lasting operation, maybe a little bit of grease helps. Grease the wheels. The sear. Yes, the sear. Not to be confused with the auto sear. auto sear is something extremely illegal, and if you get an auto sear, the ATF will come and shoot your dog. Don't do it. So this one, it goes like this. It's like flat on top. Don't put it in backwards, flat on top. And here's the hammer. So it will go about here. It'll like push the hammer this way. So use this part to push the hammer. So just put that on there. It's always a little awkward doing this part because you just kind of gotta finagle it in. There's no elegant, nice way to do this. Just push and prod. There we go. So just like this. Now we'll install this in here. So in this other hole, this is where it goes. So the way this works is these two flippy things are going to rest on this other pin that you've put in earlier. So you've actually got to go in from the back, go in from the back door, and rest those two flippy things on that pin that you drove in first. So put those flippy things on there, then push until this lines up, and then push the pin in. So it's a little easier to get this pin kind of in there already. Just the moment it gets in there. Lining everything up is a little tricky because it takes a lot of force. This is a very strong spring. What could help is you can look from one side and line it up and then push the pin in from the other side. Well, there's a variety of ways to do this. Just get it however you wish, but just get that hole lined up with that spring with the little tails there, and then tails, haha, tails. Push it in the rest of the way. Because of the tension, you actually need to like give a few taps on the hammer. The reason why this one's harder to push in is that this spring is a very strong spring. There's a lot of tension on this pin. The other spring is a very weak pin, so it can easily be hammered in, or easily be pushed in by hand. So now we have this part. Now, if you cock this back, don't pull the trigger like this, because this hammer will smash into this thin piece of metal here, and could potentially cause damage. Sometimes use a punch to align on the line of the holes. Yeah, I do that too. The punch is pretty useful. Just use it like a thinner punch. It can help you get the holes lined up. What you can do is just put your finger in front and pull the trigger here. So that can just make sure it's working. Bang. And then like that. So now we've completed the banger component. So really right now you could just slap an upper on this and then, well, no, you don't have a buffer tube. Well, you can shoot one bullet. One bullet's not very good. You need the rest of them. Okay, let's see. What's the next component? Should I do the safety selector first, or these things? Well, let's do what we need to. Let's just do the safety selector. So it's harder to install the safety selector when the gun is not cocked. So actually recommend you cock the gun first. See, as you see here, there's that part of the trigger is actually blocking that hole. That's what makes it, that's the thing that's blocked by the safety. So you pull it back and it's totally empty. So when the trigger is pulled, it pushes that thing there, and then that's what's going on here. So cocking it back makes it a little easier to install that. So the safety selector is actually kind of tricky because it's combined with the grip as a common component. So I'll explain that in a moment. So the way the safety selector works is that it spins around in here. Wait, wrong side. This is a... Wait, right? No, yeah, this is that side. Like, yeah. It goes on this side. Spins around here, but the way that... Right now it just spins freely. The way that it's held in appropriate position is by this, in this groove. So this detent goes into these two holes, and it's spring-loaded to keep the positioning. These holes and the detent. So the way this exists in the gun is like so. And this spring is pushed up from the bottom by a spring. And then it goes like that. The way that spring works is it comes in through this hole on the bottom. But this hole actually goes all the way through down here. So it actually goes all the way through to the grip. So the grip is what holds this spring in. This spring that goes in this hole just flops in like that. And the grip holds this spring in. So you actually have to install these two components together. You can't have a gun with no grip unless it has no safety selector also. As you can see, the corresponding hole in the grip right here lines up with, wait, what? Yeah, lines up with that hole there. Let's get this put together. A little bit of lube on this spring, grease. And stick that in there. A little bit on this here too. Just drop this in. This part's easy. Drop it in. Drop this in. Oops, upside down. So, of course, the pointy part goes down. Pointy part down. Get the focus right. Pointy down into the hole. And then just shove the grip on. Stick it in there. Magpul parts are all a little tight. By a little tight, I mean real tight. The hell? Okay, this is a little narrow. I guess they're all, it's meant to be tight, but I just gotta force it in. It's just plastic. I think I like mil-spec a little more. Oops. So this thing has got to be in one of these two positions or else it won't work, semi-air burst, and then we'll just get this over here, just force it in, I guess. Don't pull the trigger when this is happening. That spring will line up with that hole and push that detent in. So, oops. Make sure this is in the correct position, and then force that grip on. Use all your might. I'm gonna have to hammer this grip on. I don't think I'm buying. I don't think I'm buying Magpul furniture next time. This grip is kind of shitty. Heck, who thought these tolerances were good? He's just still not on. You're gonna have to sit on it or something. Well, we'll get back to this later. This grip isn't going anywhere. But after that, actually, I could just use the screw to push it in all the way. The rest of the way, maybe. We'll see if that works. Huh. I'll wreck the threads. Hope I don't wreck the threads. So... Find the correct one. This is a 3/16 driver. I think I really want to get this position before I get the screw. Just gonna really force it, I guess. Heck, this isn't going anywhere. There we go. Just had to sit on it. My fat ass was enough to get that grip on all the way. There we go. I got the grip. And the safety selected, we can test it. It clicks real nicely. ASMR. And we can try safe, so just hold the hammer just in case it doesn't work, and then pull the trigger, nothing happens. Put it in semi, and bang. Now we'll screw it in. Part's a little tricky because you gotta like reach down in there and line up the screw with the hole. So it's not easy, but just kind of fiddle with it until you get it in there. So what I like to do, which is like have it on the tip and then like have one finger like that, just kind of wiggle her in there. Just gotta get it in the hole. Just the tip. It's gonna take a few tries, but you'll get it. You know, this rounded end on the wrench actually makes it harder. I wonder if I have one that doesn't have the rounded end. It just doesn't stay so well. Flops around. See, like this? It's supposed to make things easier, but it's making it harder. All right, there. Here's how I did it. I put it in that slot like this. I just rested it in the slot and then pushed it in there and then kind of wiggled it a little. Get it in that hole. A little bit of a hack job, but once it's in the hole, you can just shove this in and start screwing. Screwing in the screw, not screwing like any other kind of screwing. This is a safe for work channel. Frick, I got it in the hole, but it's still not screwing. It's not catching. I'm not a fan of this Magpul furniture at all. Mil spec next time. Oh, I'm in. I'm in. Got him. Yeah, just getting the skill to finagle screws to get lined up with where they're supposed to go. It's just like, as you DIY more stuff, you get better at it. So eventually you'll just know the right motions to finagle to get that screw to catch. There we go. Now that group ain't going nowhere. So see, you can't put it on safe when this camera's like this. Just put it on safe. There we go. Now the grip's on. And we're actually almost done. I just got to put these 2 pins in and put the buffer tube on. Start with the front pin. The front pin is the one that we need this special tool for. Actually a quite tricky piece. Without this tool, it's actually one of the hardest parts of this build. But with the tool, it's very helpful. So basically, the pin, there's a detent that comes out this hole right here. And you got to push it down. You got to push that down and then shove this pin in on top of it. That ain't easy because it really wants to go out. So what this tool does is it holds it in. It helps you push it down first, and then second, it holds it in. Let me show you what I mean. And see, because they know it's so easy to fuck this up, they give you an extra 2. You get 3 of these springs, you're only going to need 2. If one goes flying, you ain't never getting it back. Let me show you what I mean. This goes in here. And this piece goes on top. And you gotta shove this tiny ass thing in that hole, then shove this thing right on top of it. That ain't easy. You could do it with just a pair of pliers and a lot of work, a lot of effort, but I don't recommend it. Not at all. So just lube up this groove a little, just so this thing slides freely. So I'll show you how to use this tool. So this tool has a hole in it. Which tool do I want to use? Yeah, I want to use this tool. So this tool has a hole in it, and you use this hole to help you get that spring in. I have used a razor blade and wear safety glasses. Lost a few detents. Lol. Yes, shoving things into holes. Yeah, so this tool is really worth it. It helps a lot. So put the spring in, just like that. Easy peasy. And get this guy. Unlike the other one, this thing is the same both ways, so you don't have to worry about it, unlike the safety selector, which can go in backwards. So what you can do, what we're going to do is we're going to use this pusher to push this in here, and then slide this out, which will, wait, am I doing this the right way? Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. So we're going to push this in here, and then slide it out a little bit, which will hold the detent in. Can you all see this properly? So just push it. Now it's still not super easy. You've got to be really careful still. But it's a lot easier than without the tool. So just push it down all the way. And rotate the tool a little, like so. So now it's just on the side of this rod. Rod. And then we will push it in like so. So we just need to, wait, which guy does, oh, this guy goes in like this, right? Yeah. Like so, yeah. So be very careful here because you're going to push this in and like substitute in. But as soon as the spring starts, like as soon as the spring gets off this piece and onto this piece, it's not going to have the support of the rest of this component. So it's going to push up a lot as soon as that happens. So if you're not careful, this thing will go flying as soon as you push it past this barrier. So be very careful. Put a lot of support on top with your fingers. It went flying. It went flying. I just warned you. Didn't warn myself hard enough. F. That's why we get an extra. There we go. You just gotta like real push it down. Push down as you go over that gap. Now we're in. In like Flynn. Anyone watch that guy, In Like Flynn? I mean the guy who says In Like Flynn, not the guy named In Like Flynn. So now it clicks in like this and you can push it out too. Oh, just punch to push it out. In the field, you can open this without any tools. You're supposed to use a bullet. And I guess if you have one of these in the field, in a combat situation, you'll have a lot of bullets around too. There we go. So that's all this tool's for. We got this whole tool just for that one tiny piece. But it is a lot easier than using a razor blade and safety glasses. Should be wearing safety glasses too. AVE? AVE? What do you mean AVE? I don't know what AVE means. Andrew versus environment? So now we got to put in the rear one. So the rear one's similar to the safety selector right here, where it's the safety selector is held in by the grip. This is similar, where this pin is actually held in by the buffer tube. So we'll need to assemble these components kind of together. Take this out. Won't need that until later. And then we will take a look at these components. So this is just for storage. We do not want to assemble the gun like this. Oh, EEV blog. Yeah. In Like Flynn is EEV blog. I really like how he uses the word for transistors. A little bit of a taboo word. I'm not going to say it. Just wear your safety squids. You'll be fine. So first, how to assemble this piece. So first, this nut will go on like so. And then this piece will go on like so. So this little bump faces forwards. And here, I don't actually know exactly I don't know which one's the right way to do this. This might be on backwards, this nut, but I don't think it matters. So if you're officially going to do this the right way, you're supposed to stake this. So when you stake it, you use a a punch. Yeah, it must be this way. So you stake it like this, where you use a punch on this piece of metal right here, and deform, like you just hammer in here, and it pushes this piece of metal into this little gap right there. So that holds this in place really securely. And because this gets a lot of shocks, you definitely don't want this coming loose during combat situation. But since I'm never going to take, well, not going to say never, but since I don't plan on entering a combat situation anytime soon, and I like maybe taking apart stuff and putting it back together, I like to leave this off. But if you want to be really safe and reliable, you should get a punch and punch this piece right there. But this is how it goes. So these little notches are for the punch. They should go forward. These big notches are for your wrench, and they go backwards. This might have the notches in different orientations, but basically the little notches for staking need to go forward. And this plate goes in here, keeps everything lined up and straight. This little bump needs to go in that hole. Shoving more things in more holes. So the way this works is first you screw in this tube, just screw it in. Then you advance this nut to hold this bump in, shove this bump into the hole. Yes, it's not combat situation, it is self-defense situation. Yes, of course, I would absolutely never use any of these items in a combat situation, only in a self-defense situation where my life is endangered in a legal way, according to all the local laws and regulations. So we screw this in just like this into this piece, and then advance this, and this hole will get shoved in, this bump will get shoved into that hole, and that will hold it in place so this doesn't spin anymore. The next part is that this part needs to get advanced. This piece, where's the piece? This piece, which holds the buffer tube in, goes in that hole right there. And to prevent it from popping out, we need to advance this far enough so that it partially covers that hole and holds this piece in. So let's begin with this piece, get that in there, and then we'll advance this, screw it in. We're going to screw. So as usual, just a little grease the wheels. There's no wheels here, but it's an expression. English reps. This just goes in this hole. Shove that spring in the hole, like so. And then shove this into this hole. So now there's a second hole here. This is a not standard feature, this rear hole. Don't worry about that hole. Your thing probably won't have one either. I just stick that right there. So right on this, see how it's got a little point? That point is, like, the point is going to protrude, but this wide part is going to be held down by this tube. So let's start screwing this in. So right when here, we just leave that up, and this is hitting now. So we just need to push it down, do a full rotation. Should be a full, oh, let's back this off more. Think? Yeah. Now this is held in place. So you can see that this piece is now held in place by that tube. Now we just advance this forward and then screw this nut in to tighten it up. So now that we've advanced this forward, this will no longer be able to rotate. Now, need this whole tool just for this one thing. Tighten her up. Now this is the point where you can stake it if you want to, but I'm not going to do that. Oh, I'm a moron. I forgot this thing. Let's undo this. Do this all over again. So it's kind of, this part is tricky because you have to kind of coordinate all these three happenings at the same time. I can just get this in probably without unscrewing this all the way. So this pin goes in here. Same side as the other pin. Drop her in. Can I? No, I can't. I'm going to unscrew it. This is just three happenings at the same time. This part is not technically challenging. It's just challenging because there's three moving components at the same time, all dependent on each other. So grease the spring, grease the detent, drop this in this hole, shove it in that hole, shove this guy in, and then make sure this clicks into this piece. So this pin can click a little. Make sure it's in that groove. In the groove. Pump it up. Okay. Now that that's in that groove, now we can actually do this part. So this part's also tricky because you can't, this spring is protruding and this thing is spinning. So you gotta kind of spin this above that spring and avoid that spring. See, it's hitting the spring and just like going over. And then now you actually have to push the spring down underneath this piece to get past it. And don't let the spring fly out. Well, actually, I'm a moron. I didn't have to do that because I could just low IQ listener. I could have just done this, like done this and then put it in. Low IQ listener right here. I'm going to do that now. Take this out. Okay. So, well, not quite. I guess I got to go from here. Because at this last rotation, you can't go any further because this piece is stopping it. So I got to go from here. Shove this in. Push the spring down, get it under this guy, make sure it doesn't fly out. There we go. Now we've got all the pieces in. This thing is held. This thing is held, and this spring is held, and this pin is held. So now we'll just finally tighten this nut for real. So this is why I don't do the staking. If I staked it and did that screw up, well then I'd have to unstake it. Now tighten. Now for the finishing touches. So when you're just going to shove this in. So just grease it up is usually the recommendation on this thing. This thing does a lot of moving, so moving and grooving. that all lubed up. And then just shove it in. So this has a few flat spots on here, so you can use that flat spot to get over the detent more easily. But otherwise, just stick her in there. Stick your thing in that hole. And that's it. So now this part is complete. Maybe just get a paper towel and wipe it off because this thing is covered in jizz. But we have a complete lower receiver ready to kill. So if you're building a pistol, leave it like this because you can't have a stock on a pistol. So leave the buffer tube blank on a pistol, but I'm not building a pistol. So it will be a rifle. So I'm going to grab a stock and stick it on. So the way this stock works is it's held in by this, but you can't just pull this. You have to pull this pin down even farther. So this part's a little tricky actually on the Magpul. On the mil-spec it's easier. Can I push this? No, I can't. Yeah, on the mil-spec it's easier. Maybe I just grab a mil-spec stock. I'm not a fan of this Magpul stuff. People really swear by it, but I guess I don't. I gotta pull this pin down, but I got weak arm strength. Weak hand strength. Huh. It's not that hard to push. It is pretty hard to push. I probably want to use a tool because just not a lot of good purchase on this, so I'm going to use some sort of tool to push it down. I'm not sure. Having a little trouble here. Oh, I think if I just push it from here and then I'll be able to get a tool underneath there. Like that. And I'll just do something like this. A little bit hacky, but it'll probably do. Shove a pin in there, and that'll let me push it down farther with this existing lever. A little bit, definitely a big hack, but I'll just lower this in there. Whatever. Okay. And pull, push. There we go. Extendable adult stock. This is illegal in several states. Please check your local regulations to make sure you can have this if you do put one on. Adjustable. Very nice. It's also wobbly. Yeah, fuck Magpul. Mil-spec. I'm gonna do mil-spec next time. So now that we have this here, let's put the top on the gun. So this is the lower. This is a complete lower. And then you can just buy the upper on its own. Just buy it at the store. I don't really recommend building your own upper. It's kind of a pain in the butt. So here is an upper receiver, just ready to use. Let's put her together. First put on the front. Line up the pin and push it in. So push this in as soon as you get that lined up. little trouble here. There we go. So there's the front. So now you can just, like this. Runs like this now. Now push in the back. Close her up and push the button. Change the angle of this camera a little. Ready to kill. So now we can do the function test. Now that the upper is installed, we can actually pull the trigger without worrying about it because it'll hit the firing pin instead. So first let's make sure there's nothing in there. Never pull the trigger on a gun without first checking. Look in there with your eyeballs. Make sure there's nothing in there. If there is something in there, well, don't pull the trigger. I'll just stick this in here. So to explain the bolt catch, since there's no bullets in here, the bolt will go back when you shoot the final bullet. And then this piece will push the bolt catch like so. So now the bolt is held open. So you can change mags, put a fresh one in, and then this is still open. So the gun is like ready to cock, and then press this button to drop that piece. Now the bolt is closed. So now the gun is ready to shoot because now because when you press the button and close this, it puts a bullet in the chamber ready to kill. But if you didn't have that, you'd have to pull it back. So let me show you what it means. Like, let's say there was no bullet in the gun. Like, the gun was totally empty. It is empty, right? Now, this is empty too, but let's say you put a full one in here. Well, the bullets are still all in here. They're not in the rest of they're not in the gun yet. So you got to pull it back. You got to do the cocking, and then cock it, and then load the gun, like load the bullet into the gun. So that's the purpose of the bolt catch. It's quite useful. A lot of guns don't have it, which is an extra step. You got to, every time you reload, you got to cock the gun. It's a lot of work. All right, now we'll try to pull the trigger. So let's put it on shoot and kill. Deploy my sights. And of course, every time before you pull the trigger, if it's not a combat situation, look. Double check with your eyes that there's no bullet in there. This is full safety. Now I'll pull the trigger, see if it works. Bam. And there we go. There's our piece. Rate it. And of course, we got the extras. So that's all I had for today. Today we assembled the lower receiver of a certain item and tested its functions to make sure it was working properly. Cool video out of 10. Thanks. So if you like the video, maybe I'll make some more similar videos in the future. Other than that, thanks for coming to my stream. I will see you all later.